What if the story you're most afraid to tell is the very story that could set you free from your past and change the world? If that were possible, would you be curious? Here's the thing. Most of us have no problem sharing the pretty happy stories of our lives. I mean, just look at social media. Everybody's extremely happy and surprisingly pretty. And as we all know, the internet does not lie. But why do we conveniently leave out the ugly stories, the flaws, the failures, those moments that we wish had never happened? Well, I think we all know why we do it, but what if we didn't? For today, I want to share with you two versions of my life story. First, I'll share with you the pretty happy story that I used to tell everyone. And then I'm going to share with you a story that I hid for decades, a story that I swore I would never tell a soul. And as you're listening, I want you to consider which one do you relate to more. So here goes the pretty story. It's really short. Growing up, I had a great childhood, a close family, lots of friends. I played sports, went to church. After I graduated high school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, so I worked in some bars and clubs just trying to figure it out. At the age of 23, I started my very first company, a promotions and event planning company down in Miami, Florida. We did really fun parties like the VMAs, the Video Music Awards. By the age of 27, I started my second company as a real estate investor, and turned out I was pretty good at it. I flipped hundreds of homes, built multi-million-dollar mansions, and I even filmed a pilot for HGTV. By the year 2020, I decided to put my real estate career on pause, and I published my first book, and I launched my speaking career. Oh, and get this, I did most of that while being a full-time single mom. That sounds pretty good, right? Well, the truth is, it wasn't nearly as perfect as I made it sound. So here goes my ugly story. It started back in high school. In 9th grade, I became the victim of extreme bullying for 2 years. The girls in the grade above me started it, and by the second year, the girls in my own grade, including 2 of my best friends, joined in to be part of it. To make this story even crazier, my cousin was good friends with the girls that started all of it. Every day, I would come home and I would cry because I didn't understand why those girls hated me so much, or how the people closest to me could just turn their backs on me. That kind of pain and betrayal hurt me more than anything I'd ever felt in those 14 to 15 years on this planet. During school, they would whisper and stare as I walked by them in the hallways. They left mean, threatening notes in my locker. And eventually they vandalized my mom's car, and they wrote the letters BITCH in shaving cream in our driveway, which stained it. So every day when I came home from school, I had to see it. We ended up getting the police involved, and what should have been some of the best years of my life ended up being some of the worst. Luckily, by my junior year, I was transferred schools, and I thought things would get better, and they did, except that sweet, kind, loving, innocent child that I once was now an angry, hurting teen, and I was withdrawing, acting out, and shutting down. I quit sports, I quit church, I started skipping school, I started fighting a lot with my family, I even ran away my senior year. I barely graduated high school because I was numbing myself with drinking and drugs and boys, anything to mask the pain that I felt and to quiet the voices of those girls in my head telling me that I wasn't wanted. By the age of 19, I was dating drug dealers, and I was arrested by the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration of the federal government of the United States of America. After that arrest, I didn't see much hope for my future, so I quit college and I became a stripper. At the age of 20, I was arrested again for underage drinking. At the age of 23, I was arrested again by the feds. This time, I was facing up to 20 years in prison. Luckily, I didn't serve any prison time, but I did serve jail time, and I walked out carrying a new label. I was now a conditional felon. I didn't think my life could get much worse, but I was wrong. Shortly after my release, I did fall in love. And within 1 year, he became abusive. He said things I can't even repeat, but he'd also say things like, "You're worthless, and nobody would ever want a girl like you." Eventually, it turned physical, and after a serious threat to my life, about 4 years later, I finally found the courage to leave him. But leaving him wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was being left alone with his words, replaying over and over in my head until I began to think, maybe he's right. Look at me. Who would want a girl like me? I remember crying harder than I ever had this one particular night because I was so ashamed of the girl that I had become. My home was also in foreclosure, and I couldn't see a way out of the mess that I had created, and I felt hopeless. So I did the only thing I could think of. I cried out to God, "Please help me, because I don't have the desire to live anymore." I cried myself to sleep that night, and the next morning when I woke up, I did feel different. In fact, I took a shower. It had been a long time, so it was a big deal. And I decided, instead of listening to the voices in my head telling me that things were never going to get better, that I was going to fight. So I went back to church. I found free counseling. I devoured self-help books and spiritual books. I did everything I could to hold on for one more day, every day. And in a desperate attempt to make something of my life, I went to my closet. I pulled out a book from a real estate investing seminar that I had gone to a couple years back. I followed the process, and within 45 days, I put a home under contract, found another investor, flipped it, and made $7,000. That one deal saved my home from foreclosure, and it was the beginning of my real estate investing career. I did really good for a while, but life had more unexpected bumps in the road. And within just a couple short years later, I became an unexpected, full-time, single mom that was nearly homeless once again, but this time with a baby. I was scared, but I was angry. I felt like no matter how many times I got back up, life was just going to knock me back down. But after feeling sorry for myself and blaming everybody else around me for a few months, I decided I was going to get back up and I was going to fight. And within 9 months, I launched my real estate career for a second time. Fast forward 6 years later, and I had just closed on the biggest project of my entire career. And yet, I felt miserable. I had become extremely successful, but somewhere along the way of trying to prove my worth to everyone, I lost myself again, and I felt exhausted. But I wasn't exhausted from building and flipping houses. I was exhausted from running from my past. By keeping my past bottled up because I was terrified that people would find out the kind of girl that I really was, and they would judge me, reject me, and not want me. I unknowingly built this double life, one where I wore a metaphorical mask in public, pretending to be somebody else. From the outside looking in, I looked perfect. But on the inside, I was battling my shame and self-sabotage. But not because I didn't want a better life. It was because I didn't believe that a girl like me deserved one. I can see it so clearly now. Success then failure, over and over and over. But I couldn't quite fully understand it until I finally stopped running from my past and I faced my truth. So I put my real estate career on pause. I wrote and published my autobiography, and I began to speak openly about my past. Now let me ask you a question. By show of hands, who of you connected more with the pretty story? With the ugly story? There's no wrong answer. You just met two versions of me, except only one of those stories allowed me to find freedom from my past. And surprisingly, here's how I found it. the more I opened up about the unspeakable events from my past, the freer I became. And every single time I shared, others, complete strangers, felt safe enough to come and open up to me. And that journey of sharing and connecting with others, it led me back to a place that I hadn't been to since before high school, a place of belonging, happiness, and confidence in myself again. And here's what I want you to know. Sharing your story in a safe, non-judgmental space doesn't just help you to connect with others. It helps you to find yourself again. Because when you put words to the parts of you that have been silenced, you break the isolation that's been keeping you prisoner. You begin to see that you're not alone, and the pain you thought would destroy you can create connection, compassion, and community with others in the most powerful way. Something magical happens when you stop trying to silence your past, and instead, you choose to embrace it. Instead of seeing your past as your prison, you begin to see it as your platform. Because the one story that you once hid in shame because you thought it disqualified you becomes the very story that makes you qualified to lead and lift others up. And anyone can take that first step towards freedom today. All you have to do is go somewhere where nobody else is around and simply begin to write the part of your story that you've been holding in. Because the moment you do, you break the bondage of suppression and shame over your life. And instead of allowing your past to continue to hold power over you, you begin to take your power back. So I'll leave you with this. What story are you still hiding? Because maybe, just maybe, it's the story that holds the key to your freedom and reminds somebody else they can be free too. Thank you.